Welcome guys to another episode of Game Review. This time we have an interesting lineup for you guys. Levon Aronian versus Alireza Firouzja. So they got matched up in the first round of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge, which was hosted as part of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour. And yeah, we're going to be reviewing their game today. Very interesting game. But before we start, guys, please remember to hit the like, subscribe button. Please subscribe so that we can continue bringing you great content, keep you up to date with all the latest in the chess world. So let's jump straight into it. Levon played with the white pieces with d4. Alireza playing with the black pieces went knight f6, knight f3, d5, e3, e6, knight bd2. So this type of setup with e3, d4 is known as the Colle System. It is known to be a rather passive type of setup, structurally wise, and yeah, it's very rare to see it at elite level. So I'm sure, like, because it's a 15 minute plus 10-second rapid challenge, nobody would like to give away too much of their current main repertoire preparation or theory. So I'm assuming this is why we've been seeing a lot of these type of offbeat openings being played. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just not very ambitious. So knight bd2, c5, b3, bishop d6, bishop b2, castles, bishop d3, knight c6, castles, queen c7, c4. And now just note that this is a very strong center here where either white or black eventually needs to choose which way to take, either like this or other way around, depending on who the player is. So just for you guys to know that this will change the pawn structure, and it's very important to take with the correct pawn first. Alireza decided c takes d4 is the move for him. So c takes d4, e takes d4, bishop d7, and just developing his last minor piece. Very well known as also moves like b6 in these type of structures, where you can actually just keep your eye on the advancement of the c4 to c5 pawn, but also perhaps possibly develop your bishop to b7 or a6 at a later stage. So this was not the choice for Alireza today. Instead, he went with a quiet bishop d7. The game continued rook e1, rook fd8, c5. There Levon goes for getting some space on the queen side. Now, generally the c5 pawn would want to be supported by some additional pawns. So a3, b4 should come fast. After the bishop went to f4, Levon just played g3, bishop h6, and a3. Now a3 is very quickly supporting this b4, b5 push, but at the same time this pawn will keep advancing to these squares as well. So this is why perhaps the suggestion was made that a5 is a very good move here for black. Not because it stops all of this b4, it is very possible for white just to play bishop c3 and continue with his plan, but at least it buys black some time to coordinate their pieces, to get an attack going, and definitely to get some form of counterplay. So instead, Alireza just said, I'm not worried about you advancing on the queen side, I've got my own plans. So after a3, he just went g6, and he says, let's play. b4 was played, bishop g7, rook c1, rook ac8, and now for the b5 advance. Now after this knight retreats back to e7, you can see the clear space advantage that white has gained by the strong c5 and b5 pawns. And the general rule of thumb is to break up these pawns that are protected by other pawns. You need to attack the base of the pawn. Just to point this out, I'm talking about the d4 square. The thing that makes it very hard for black in this position is this e5 square is covered by so many pieces, which makes it nearly impossible for a pawn break to happen on that square. So what I found interesting about this position is that Alireza quickly started launching a kingside attack in order to play on this side of the board. So let's see, after some maneuvering, he immediately went for that h5 move. So the game continued. A4, bishop just dropped back to e8, rook c2, just some maneuvering, getting their pieces back, knight f5, queen e2, queen b8 got played, bishop c3, and now Alireza starts advancing with h5s, finally some form of initiative with regards to seeking counterplay on the king side. Levon continues with his queen side type of formation, looking for a possible pawn break, h4 and a5. Now, what's nice is that black basically sped up the speed of play so much that they are actually creating a lot of threats on this b3 square with the knight and with this queen. So after h takes g3, h takes g3, Alireza chooses to play knight h5 as well. Now the imminent and immediate threat is for one of these knights to capture on g3 and then to recapture with the queen. So that is something to look out for, and Levon decided to sidestep all this business by playing knight to f1. So as soon as the knight went back to f6, the rook went to b1, and now this idea of playing knight e4 is an absolute amazing move. So what Alireza is basically saying is, I'm putting my knight on that central outpost. I am actually controlling all these weaknesses from that square, so I'm basically making it an obligation for you to take on e4. And once you do take, it does seem like white picks up a pawn, but the beauty is that since this pawn on a4 is now on a5, I want to put my bishop on c6 and gun down this entire diagonal. But since the pawn is no longer on a4, I can simply play a6 and ask questions regarding this b5 pawn. This b5 pawn will have a couple of choices. It can take on a6, it can play b6, or it can just leave it there. Obviously, if the pawn is left on b5, you will simply take with the pawn or the bishop, but they will lose a pawn. So white here needs to either play b6 or b takes a6. So Levon chooses to go for b takes a6, and Alireza immediately plays bishop to c6. Just absolute monster along this diagonal. So after queen e2, white will probably hope for a move like rook c to b2 here to actually control that b7 pin quite a bit more, but this is easily sidestepped by playing queen a8. Now you're actually looking to battery up the queen and the bishop after this pawn has moved from b7 to a6. So knight e3 was played, b takes a6, d5, here looking for some exchanges in the form of saying, listen, black is getting rather dangerous here, so we might want to exchange some pieces and consolidate the position. After knight takes e3, queen takes e3, rook d5. This is an excellent recapture on d5 because this lifts the rook to possibly go to h5 and create some threats along the h file. So after bishop takes g7, king takes g7 is the expected move, which would have probably been just transposed to the same position. But Alireza finds this nice rook h5 intermediate move first, which basically says now all my pieces are gunning down this diagonal, the bishop as well. My rook is ready to go to h1. There's some major problems on this diagonal. So the way that Levon chose to fix these problems is just by playing knight to h2 and saying, listen, I have removed my knight from this f3 square, but I have in fact also stopped this rook from moving. So after this, Alireza just recaptured on g7 and Levon played f3 obviously just to cut off this diagonal. Apologies for that. But also open up this rook to protect the king. After rook ch8, the rook's doubled on the h file, creating more problems. Rook b6 was played, queen d8, interesting thing is this queen is now going to f6, which immediately creates mate threats on a1. So after rook d2, this queen went to f6, immediately threatening mate on a1. Just to explain this, it seems like this bishop's hanging, but look what happens the moment it gets taken. Rook takes c6, queen a1 check, rook d1, queen takes, queen e1, queen takes, knight f1, and mate is inevitably forced. So instead, white just dropped the rook back down to b2 just to cut off this diagonal so that the queen cannot move to a1. And this is where a missed opportunity is shown by Alireza. Alireza simply played rook to h3. And the interesting thing is, because of these imminent threats on the a1 square, you could always consider certain moves like rook b8. But 2 moves later, we see Alireza playing rook h3, and after f4, he should have just simply played rook to b8. After rook b8, this bishop's diagonal is now open, cutting off more squares around the king, and the rook cannot take on b8. If the rook takes, then the same mate threats apply. Queen a1 check, king f2, rook h2 check, mate. Whenever the king moves to the second rank, it will get mated by the rook on the h file. So instead of playing king f2, we might have to consider that after rook b8, queen e5 is possibly the only and the best move for white. The only logical solution, but unfortunately it still leads to a lost endgame for white. So after queen takes e5, f takes e5, rook takes g3, king f1, rook h8, rook f2, bishop b5 check, king e1, rook e3 check, king d2, rook takes e5. As you can see, all the pawns are dropping, and black has ample of activity and those 3 extra passed pawns to start marching down the board. So instead of this, Alireza chose to not play the rook to b8, but instead played the rook to h5. Missed opportunity perhaps, but after looking at this move quite a bit, it seems to be quite good as well. So Levon went for it. He went knight to g4, and Alireza just simply checked on h1, and the king moves to f2. Now the whole essence of this knight is it is covering the h2 square. It is also attacking the queen on f6, but whenever it takes the queen on f6, this rook will just march down to h2 and offer checkmate. So Alireza also decided here to play g5, another missed opportunity. Here Alireza could have simply put the rook on h4, saying, listen, the only piece that is avoiding me from checkmating you is this knight on g4. I'm attacking it with my rook. If you move it anywhere, I will come down and checkmate you. If you choose to take me, I've got a nice little deflection in store with the means of rook f1 check, and I will pick up your queen for free. Instead of playing this rook h5 move, Alireza decided to simply play g5. Now, I have to make this clear, guys, that it is a rapid game, and these players are not sitting with an abundance of time to analyze all these positions with. So I'm pointing out a possible improvement with regards to their game, but again, it's very hard to find these moves for any player under such strenuous time conditions. g5, so queen e5 got played, queen takes e5, and knight takes e5. After bishop d5, king e3, rook h3, king d4, rook takes g3, c6, and now you can see there's no real way in which white can stop the advancement of the c pawn, at least not without losing material. f6, rook b7 check, king h6, f takes g, and king to c5. Now at this point here, you can see that the pawn will just run, the king will get in here, and it is basically game over for white. For black, my apologies. And then if the rook goes to e3, which was the last move that was played in the game, just a time blitz blunder, which led to the double attack on g4, actually picking up the rook. This is where Alireza resigned, but nonetheless, game full of mistakes, but very interesting positions and instructive, to say the least. And yeah, hope to see both Levon and Alireza perform well and bring us very exciting chess games to watch. Guys, thanks for watching. Please, again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'll be sure to cover the rest of the tournament as well. Please go to the channel, and if you guys want us to do anything specific with regards to chess game review, please just drop it down in the comment section below. We will be sure to respond. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.